Hi everyone. Happy Father's Day to all the dads. I don't know if we have any dads watching today, but if you are, happy Father's Day to you. And I hope you're having a wonderful day. I'm Tammy. I'm the creator of the blog and this YouTube channel called Nutmeg Notebook. And I am whole food, plant-based, SOS free, which stands for salt, oil, and sugar. But the recipes that we share are amazing and delicious because we teach you how to make them be so, with lots of fun things that we add to them. So today we're going to talk all about weight loss plateaus because this goes quite nicely with the talk that we did last week when we talked all about calorie density and sequencing. So I would love to know if any of you used that knowledge, if any of it was new to you. Did any of you make any changes this past week? Did you try sequencing? And if you did it work for you? What did you think? So I'm just curious about that. Wow, the cameraman's lowering the camera a lot. So my husband Tom will be joining us in a couple minutes. He's just doing some things behind the scenes here for us. So a little bit of housekeeping. If you want to ask a question, if you would preface your question in the comments with 4 question marks, then ask your question, and then do 4 more question marks. That just helps them pop out to Tom when he's looking through the questions to give those to me. And then we also have a couple of our ladies are here today moderating. Who do we have today, Tom?
Jesse and Tiffany are here.
Jesse and Tiffany, thank you so much. They volunteer to help moderate and look for silly trolls and delete them when necessary. So we're really glad you're here. So just for anyone who's new, who doesn't know my story, I used to be much heavier. So I just want to share my before pictures, just so you know that I do have street cred because I used to be fluffy. And once I learned how to eat the right foods in the right quantities, then weight loss just became really a lot easier. And I've been maintaining my weight loss for the past 5 years. So a whole food plant-based diet has amazing benefits, not only for your initial health, but if you are overweight, then it can help you get to your natural, what I call happy weight. So last week, after we did our talk on calorie density, there did come up some questions. Some people were asking about a plateau. I don't recall ever reaching a plateau when I was initially transitioning to a whole food plant-based diet. But what did happen to me is I did become hypothyroid about a year or so into eating this way. It had nothing to do with the diet. My thyroid had started going crazy before I ever started a whole food plant-based diet, but I was finally diagnosed with hypothyroidism and I gained some weight, I think about 20 pounds or so. But anyway, so I gained some weight from that, and I forgot my point, what my point was going to be about that. Oh, so that wasn't a plateau, but I had a really difficult time, even though I started on levothyroxine for my hypothyroidism, I had a hard time losing the weight that I gained when my thyroid started to malfunction. And I'll share with you when we get into it the things that I had to do to adjust my diet in order to lose that weight. And since then, why I'm still eating that way. So first of all, you know, a plateau is just when you've been losing weight steadily, eating a certain way and losing weight, and then for some unknown reason that you can't figure out, it seems like your weight loss stalls. And then you think, you know, well, what do I have to do now? Well, what happens is when we start losing weight, our metabolism naturally slows down. That's a survival mechanism that our body has because it doesn't want us to starve and wither away. You're coming over.
Oh, hello everyone, Tom here. A number of questions have come through in the chat feed, and I'm sure you're probably going to cover a lot of this stuff.
Okay.
But I thought I'd run through it, not to answer them now, but I'm going to hit you with the questions that have come up and then as we move through the material, then we'll know we're addressing those or not. So because it's very topical to what you're about to talk about here. So
so can I finish I was doing a thought. Can I finish my thought?
Absolutely.
And so our metabolism slows down because it thinks when we start eating less calories, it thinks, oh my gosh, starvation's happening. I better slow down her metabolism or his metabolism because maybe there's a famine and we're not getting enough food. And so I'll slow down the metabolism so that the food that he or she is eating will be enough to keep us alive. And, unfortunately or fortunately, we don't have to worry about a scarcity of food in the society that we live in. It's quite the opposite. We actually have very high calorie density food that is available almost everywhere we go in abundance. And so we actually have the opposite problem. But our brain is still hardwired, our body is still hardwired to think that when we start cutting back on calories, that there is a true deficit in food. And so it's just trying to help us survive.
Okay, so a couple of things that came in early here on the topic you're about to cover. How much weight did you lose and how long did it take? We're going to be talking about the weight we lost and a little bit about...
so I weighed 174 pounds at my very highest. And now, my weight fluctuates a little bit between like 125 and 130, depending on what's happening. And we've been eating a lot of desserts, so I'm actually at my high end right now. But I'm sequencing and eating a lot more of the non-starchy vegetables just to bring that down, because I'm maybe not quite as active right now because I'm having a problem with my sciatic nerve, and so I'm a little bit slower when I go for my morning walks and that kind of thing. Okay. So I need to balance that out. So I was a size 16 at my biggest. The largest size I ever bought was a dress one year for a Christmas party for his company party, and that was a size 18. And I was so embarrassed I cut the tag out of it. That made me feel better because the tag wasn't in the dress. But it's like everybody could look at me and see I was a size 18. But and now I wear a size 4. Most of the time it's a size 4 or small. So, and it's a lot more fun to shop for clothes at this size than it was at size 16.
Okay, I just want to read these, and then if it's stuff you're going to cover, then just say we'll be covering that. I'm going to read 2 or 3 of them. Can you explain? Susan's asking, can you explain how it is possible to lose inches but not weight? The next one is, did you ever, from Julie, did you ever use a non-starch day to break a plateau? And where did the other one go? I scrolled too fast. How much weight did you lose? You were just talking about that. Can you explain how it's possible to lose inches but not weight? There's another one up here about food
and that
specific.
one I can't answer. I'm not a doctor. I don't have an answer for that.
Yeah, but anyway, okay. So there's questions coming in. So she's going to be covering a bunch of this. So let's get through it, and then we'll see what questions come in after.
Yeah. So. Okay, let's do. So I just want to say that I have listened to Dr. Doug Lisle, who is one of the co-authors of The Pleasure Trap. And if you haven't read this book, I highly recommend it because this just explained a lot to me about why I wasn't able to moderate my eating on certain foods during my adult life, because I was a serial yo-yo dieter, and maybe some of you can relate to that. And I was great at losing weight, but I just could never keep it off long term. And so I was just constantly yo-yo dieting. But this book explained to me why that why I was having difficulty moderating eating certain foods. So he also has some videos on this, on the Pleasure Trap, and if you don't want to buy the book, do a search for one of his videos, and he's given this lecture a number of times, and it explains everything, and it was really good for me to read that because I thought something was wrong and broken with me, and once I read Dr. Lisle's book, then I realized, hey, my brain was just working the way that it was supposed to work. So I highly recommend that. So I was watching some of his videos recently just to brush up on information to share with you. And he says that he doesn't believe that we really reach a plateau. What he likes to call it is that we reach an equilibrium point. So, you know, when we start out, we're overweight and we decide we're going to lose weight, we cut back on calories or cut back on our food intake just a little bit. And because we're overweight, we're going to lose weight because we've reduced our intake. And what happens is we know from scientific evidence that when we cut back on our eating, like I was saying, our metabolism slows down and our body gets really efficient at metabolizing the food that we are ingesting. And so we reach a point of equilibrium where the weight isn't coming off anymore. And he says that there's 3 very important variables. One is our genetics. One is the content of our diet. What are we eating? And the other variable is exercise. So we have a choice there. We can clean up our diet a little bit more, change a little bit about what we're eating, or maybe we need to move more. One example that he gave is Dr. Lisle does work with Dr. McDougall when they have like a 3-day or a 10-day in-house program in Santa Rosa, California. And so he said a gentleman had come for one of those programs. I don't remember which, if it was the 3-day or the 10-day, and he had a considerable amount of weight to lose. And so he adopted the McDougall way of eating, and he went home and he steadily lost about 2 pounds per week for a year. And he lost over 100 pounds. And then his weight loss stopped. And so he called Dr. McDougall and said, hey, you know, I'm doing everything right and I'm not losing any weight. And Dr. McDougall said, are you doing any exercise? And the guy said, no. And Dr. McDougall said, start walking around the block every day. And so the guy did that, and that was just enough to make a difference. And so he had reached an equilibrium, and so he had to do something that was going to change things up, and that's what it took. So Dr. Lisle says, you know, it's an equilibrium in our behaviors as well as it can be an equilibrium about our food. And so we will need to change one or more of those depending on who we are. So, and Dr. Greger likes to say it takes fewer calories a day to live as a thinner person. I like that. And it does take fewer calories. Unfortunate, but true. So Dr. Greger says that, and if you don't know Dr. Greger, he is the author of How Not to Diet, which is another very fabulous book. And Tom has linked to the books that I'm going to be talking about today in the show notes. So if you click on the See More, then you will see there are links to the books. So Dr. Greger does not profit from the sale of his books. He donates all of the profits to charity, and he has a website called nutritionfacts.org, and he has a number of videos on there that you can watch all about weight loss. And he has a couple about plateaus as well. So this is an excellent book, and I do highly recommend that you get it. I have not read it completely from front to back. I'll pick chapters that sound interesting to me and read them on the rare occasion that I have time to read a book. So anyway, he says that every pound of weight that we lose may reduce our resting metabolic rate by 7 calories a day. And he said that doesn't sound like a lot, but let's say you lose, 100 pounds, then, that's 700 calories. That's a lot of calories. So he talks in one of his videos about the weight loss participants that were in the Biggest Loser show. Remember that show that was on TV? They measured their metabolic rate after they had lost a significant amount of weight at the end of that contest, I guess you would call it. And then they tracked them for every year for 6 years, for 6 years. And at the end of the show, they had a 500 calorie difference in their metabolic rate. At the end of 6 years, they still had that calorie deficit, meaning that even 6 years later, when maintaining their weight, they still had to eat a significant reduced amount of calories than somebody who was their same height, size, weight, and age. And so that's just what happens. That's how long our metabolism slows down for after we have lost a significant amount of weight. So it seems unfair, but it is just the way it is. And we're going to be talking more about our metabolic rate. Tom's going to talk to you about that coming up. So also, our bodies are very, very efficient. And so when we start losing weight and we start exercising, our body becomes really efficient at doing the exercise with exerting the least amount of calories that it can to do that, especially if you do the same thing day after day after day. You have the same exercise routine. It goes, oh, we know what we're going to do here and how long this lasts. And so, we know exactly how much glucose to release and, all the things that metabolic things that happen. And so also when we experience weight loss, not only does our metabolism slow down, but unfortunately our appetite is increased. And that is just the body's way of trying to help us survive. And so if you have noticed that when you start losing weight, that your hunger oftentimes seems to just soar. And it does, because that is how the body is trying to manage keeping you from getting too thin, believe it or not. So a sustained weight loss requires about 300 to 500 calorie deficit per day. And so, and we don't count calories. This is just information to help you see what has to happen in order for you to be able to lose weight. So in order to reduce your caloric intake, what we need to do is what we talked about last week, and that is to concentrate on the calorie density chart and go for the lower calorie density foods, because they not only are they the most nutrient dense foods, but they're full of the water and the fiber, and they're going to help us feel full because they're going to engage the stretch receptors that we have in our stomach, and they're going to take up a lot of volume, and then we're going to have less room for the higher calorie density foods. And so, this is one of the easiest things that we can do if we reach a plateau, or as Dr. Lisle says, a equilibrium, a point of equilibrium. You can also, so when you do that, not only are you reducing your caloric intake, but you're also increasing your nutrient intake. And then if you make sure that you include some of the dark leafy greens, as Dr. Greger talks about in this book, then you're going to benefit from the thylakoids that are a compound that's found in the dark leafy greens that helps reduce the appetite throughout the day once you've eaten some, as well as curbing cravings. And so that's really important when you're cutting some calories out in order to lose weight, and you have an increase in appetite naturally. And so you want to include, kale or spinach or broccoli, those really dark, more leafy type greens, so that you get the benefits of the thylakoids. And I found that when I joined Chef AJ's Ultimate Weight Loss Program, and we start our day in a savory way with vegetables first thing in the morning. You can still have oats, you can still have a sweet potato, but you start off with the dark leafy greens or initially any vegetables that you can get in you, because that helps curb the appetite. And her program is all outlined in The Secrets to Ultimate Weight Loss, which it's a fantastic program. And so I highly recommend getting her book as well. And then we talked about sequencing our meals last week. And sequencing will really help you reduce your caloric intake. So you're going to start with the lower calorie density vegetables, which are raw vegetables. So you would start with those first. Then you would eat steamed, non-starchy vegetables. And then you would move on to your starch. And if you do that, by the time you eat non-starchy raw vegetables, which, that takes a lot of chewing, and they're full of fiber and water, then you move on to some cooked vegetables, you're going to have a lot less room for the high calorie density foods, because by the time you get to those, all of that bulk of the fiber and water that's in those vegetables is going to have your stretch receptors activated, and they're going to tell your brain, we're getting full and we don't have a lot of room for this. Plus, you know that the stomach is about the size of a quart jar that I showed you last week. And so if you are eating a lot of vegetables before you get to the starch, there's not going to be enough room for a whole lot of starch because you're going to be full. And these things can really help you, boost you, and get you past having a plateau or having reached what Doug Lisle calls the equilibrium. Also, lower fat foods. And the lower fat foods are the lower calorie density foods. Now, for some of us who have been yo-yo dieters, this is really an important piece. And there are 2 videos that Chef AJ has where she interviewed Dr. Roseanne Oliveira from UC Davis Med Center here in the Sacramento area. And she talks all about how if you have been a yo-yo dieter, you need to eat about 25% fewer calories than someone who is your same age, your same height, your same weight, who has never dieted. And fat is a much easier thing to pull back on because most of the high calorie fattening foods are things that you're going to be eating in a small quantity. And so you can just limit those, increase your starch, increase your non-starchy vegetables, and that can really make a difference. And that was one thing that I had to do when my thyroid malfunctioned on me, is I was eating nuts and seeds every day. I was eating tofu, I was eating avocado, and even though I was eating smaller portions of them, I could not get my weight to budge until I eliminated those foods. But I eliminated those and went for starch. And as you saw last week, you can have a small amount of 400 calories of a very high fat food, or you can have a giant amount of starch or non-starchy vegetables. And of course, the bulkier the food is, the more volume you get, the more filling that it is. Okay, let's see. Oh, and Dr. Lisle, in one of the videos that I watched, he said that, people will say, well, I didn't lose weight for, 3 weeks, and then all of a sudden I lost 2 pounds. And he said, that's not true. What is true is you're losing weight maybe a few ounces at a time. So you might lose an ounce today, and maybe you're going to lose 2 ounces tomorrow. And he said this, he's tongue in cheek sometimes with the things he says. And so he said, so once the stars all align and you poop at just the right moment before you get on the scale, that's when you finally get to see how much weight your body has been losing. But everything has to line up just right for you to see the difference on the scale. Because how much we weigh from day to day is a huge variable. A lot of it depends on how much we ate yesterday, and if we ate a lot of vegetables that are full of fiber and water, and we ate a large quantity of them, you know, we might even weigh heavier the next day because we still have all of that bulk in us. And so he says he does not like people to weigh every day. He would prefer that people do a weigh-in once a month, and they weigh 3 days in a row. Once a month, you weigh 3 days in a row, and then take an average of that, because there's so much fluctuation. It depends on, you know, the weather. It depends on whether you ate something that was more high sodium. There's so many things that make a difference on the scale. And so he recommends just doing that once a month. So you might want to try that. At one point during my weight loss this last time, I had Tom hide the scale because John Pierre, who is one of the creators of the Ultimate Weight Loss Program, and he's a trainer and so much more. But he said, you know, why even mess with the scale? You can tell a lot of different ways that you're losing your weight. And the biggest one is how your clothes are feeling, you know. And so you want to pay attention to a lot of non-scale victories and other ways of determining that you're losing weight. And so I had Tom hide the scale. And he said, don't even bother looking for it because you're never going to find it. And it was freeing to not get on the scale. And Chef AJ and Jean-Pierre were so right that, you know, once you take the focus off of the weight and put the focus on being healthy and developing healthy habits, it completely changes the attitude. There's a big mental shift that happens when you do that. And eventually the scale's not going to show a weight loss. Eventually you're going to get to your proper weight. And so what's going to be your reward then? You know, what are you going to do then when you don't have the scale to look at for confirmation that you're doing well? And so it's better to focus on healthy habits than it is on how much weight did I lose this week. Instead, focus on, you know, how compliant am I being, you know, with my food plan? You know, how many times did I exercise this week or move? It doesn't even have to be like exercise. It's just being active. You know, how do I feel? Do I have less inflammation? Do I have less pain? Do I have less cravings? Do I have less headaches? You know, there's so many health benefits. Maybe you're reducing the amount of insulin that you're having to take for your diabetes, or maybe your blood pressure medication gets to be taken away because you're no longer hypertensive. You know, there's so many other things to focus on rather than just the weight. And so if you focus on the healthy habits, eventually the weight loss will come. Okay, so let's see. Let's move to the next thing. Oh, I liked this too. Dr. Greger says when you lose weight by eating less, you end up needing less. And that's very true. So here's some things to be looking at if you think you have reached a plateau or an equilibrium. Take a look at your sodium. Are you still using the salt shaker? Are you still adding salt when you're cooking your food? When we consume food that has salt added to it, it causes us to passively overeat. Now, if you would take you could take anything. You could take some potatoes and salt some potatoes and have some potatoes that aren't salted. Or you could take some cooked brown rice, salt one dish of it and don't salt the other. And then taste them. Which one are you more likely to overeat on? The salted one, because salt kind of stimulates our appetite. We also do get a bit of a dopamine hit from it. And so it just encourages us to eat more because we like that flavor. So also there's a lot of hidden sodium in foods. You need to look at all of the sauces and like soy sauce, aminos, miso, condiments that maybe you're still buying regular condiments at the grocery stores. So ketchup, mustard, pickles. There's a salsa that you buy that's already pre-prepared. It might have sugar in it. It might have salt in it. And you start putting all of that on the healthy foods and it can cause you to overeat. Now, it takes about 30 days for your brain to neuroadapt when you cut extra sodium out of your diet. And a lot of people give up before that 30 days gets over because they think, you know, this food just doesn't taste good. But stick it out. It's so worth it. Once you are no longer dependent on sodium, you can actually taste the flavor of the food and it tastes so much better. And then you can start tasting salt in things. Like you might eat a cucumber and you go, oh my gosh, this cucumber tastes kind of salty to me. Or you eat celery, which does just naturally have more sodium in it, and you'll think, oh my gosh, this celery tastes salty. There's certain greens like mustard greens or what are the other ones? My brain just went dead. That taste salty. And so there's different foods, healthy foods, that you can add to your regular food when you're cooking it to help make it taste saltier. You can use lime juice, you can use lemon juice, because those will help things taste kind of salty to you. And you'll just enjoy your food a lot more when it isn't ruined by having a lot of sodium in it. So you might also need to avoid restaurants. Now, I know that we're not going out to restaurants, most of us right now, but a lot of people are still getting takeout from restaurants. And there's a lot of hidden sodium and oil that will be in the food that you get from restaurants. So even if you tell them, you know, please don't use any on it, you know, they're not going to wash the pan out before they put your veggies in there. So there might be some residue of oil in the pan, and restaurant chefs don't think food's going to taste good if it doesn't have some salt added to it. And so unless you know the chef or know the owners of the restaurant, you're probably getting things added in there that you normally wouldn't have. It might also have nuts and seeds and avocado. And so you know, they say that people that are on a weight loss program kind of lie to themselves about what they're eating, but you might want to keep a food journal and write down absolutely everything that you eat every day. Write it all down, because there's something about putting pen to paper. Even if you're the only one that's going to see it, it keeps you more accountable. Plus, then maybe you'll see a pattern. Oh my gosh, you know, every day at 3 o'clock, the kids are home now and I'm working from home with them, and I'm going crazy at 3 because in our house, we always called it the witching hour, because that was just like the time, you know, the kids were getting home from school and everybody would be tired and grouchy and hungry. And maybe every day at 3 o'clock, when you're giving them a snack, maybe you're eating some extra food that is higher calorie density. And so maybe you'll see a pattern. And, you know, all those little what do they call them when I used to go to Weight Watchers, BLTs, bites, licks, and tastes, those can add up. So you're making them a peanut butter sandwich and, you know, you lick the knife when you get done. All of those little things can really add up. So keep a journal and see what is actually happening. You also might want to change the way you're having your food throughout the day. So, you know, they say have the bulk of your calories earlier in the day and fewer calories at the end of the day. And it all depends on your routine and when you're the most active. But you also might want to narrow your feeding window. And so, like, I try to be done eating by 7 o'clock because I go to bed at 10. So you want to have, you know, like a 3 to 4 hour window from the last bite you eat before you go to bed. And unless you're, you know, getting up and having an exercise class at midnight, you don't really need any extra calories after dinner is over because you don't have an opportunity to burn those off. And so you might look at that, you know, is it a habit every night, you know, you sit down in front of the TV and you have a snack? Well, instead, either don't watch TV at night, create a new habit. And that's another thing. We don't just stop habits, we have to replace them. We don't just give up habits, we have to replace them with something that's healthier. So if watching TV is a trigger, maybe you read a book or do a craft or, you know, watch some, listen to some podcasts or watch some videos on health or do something different. Go for a walk, take the family out and go for a walk. You know, maybe you do something different so that you aren't eating during that time. Because that nighttime eating can be really tragic for our weight. And Doug Lisle has a video called the Cram Circuit. So you might, if you have a habit of eating at night, I highly recommend that you watch the Cram Circuit video because it will explain to you what's going on in your brain and it will help you decide to make some changes. Also, alcohol and caffeine are not necessarily weight loss friendly. So alcohol is very calorically dense and it also reduces our inhibitions and we don't make the best decisions when we have alcohol. And maybe when you have a beer or a glass of wine or a mixed drink that, you know, makes you think, well, now I'd like something salty to go with that. And then, you know, you just engage in a little trap and it's just not, alcohol also slows down your metabolism for 72 hours. So you're already trying to lose weight. Your body has already naturally slowed down your metabolism. And then you have alcohol on top of it, which slows down your metabolism even more. And you can just see the trap that it can get you into. And caffeine can stimulate the appetite. And so it's also not necessarily recommended for weight loss. And a lot of people don't just drink black coffee. They want it to be sweet. So they add some sugar or honey or, I don't know, stevia. And that's not healthy either. And then they want it to have a little bit of fake creamer in it, one of the plant-based creamers, and now you see we've got a higher calorie beverage going as well. And all of that added together can stimulate the appetite and make you want to eat. And so then you decide, you know, I'd like a cookie to go with this coffee. So you kind of see how that starts going. So I don't eat, talking about the narrowing your feeding window, I don't eat after 7 o'clock unless I've gotten home like at 6:30. I try to be done by 7. Sometimes it's 7:10, 7:15. And then I just don't eat. I brush my teeth. I had braces. I think I got braces when I was I 50, Tom? Well, in my early 50s. And so I wear retainers at night so that my teeth will stay straight. So I'll go brush my teeth after dinner and put my retainers in and, you know, brush and floss. And after I've done all that, I am not going to take those babies out and eat anything because I don't want to go through that whole routine again. And so I just don't eat. And then I don't eat again the next day until I'm actually hungry. And usually that's noon. You know, and a lot of us who've been yo-yo dieters over the years, we have forgotten what true hunger feels like. And so you need to tap into that. what does true hunger feel like? I realized I did eat breakfast while I was losing my weight when I first joined Chef AJ's program, the Ultimate Weight Loss Program. I was still eating breakfast then. I was eating my vegetables, and I usually wouldn't have any starch after, because after I ate a pound of vegetables in the morning, that would fill me up. But then, you know, the healthier I got and the more tuned in I got into my hunger drive, I did a little experiment, because I thought, well, am I eating those vegetables because I'm really hungry, or am I eating them because it's a habit? And so I thought, you know, I'm going to start waiting until I'm really hungry before I eat. And for me, that is usually lunchtime. Now, once in a while, you know, maybe I haven't eaten enough the day before, or maybe I was really active all morning. Sometimes I will get hungry mid-morning or late morning. I might go ahead then and have some vegetables and maybe one of my quinoa banana oat muffins if I'm still feeling hungry. Most of the time though, after I've had the vegetables, if I try to eat the muffin, I realize that I'm already really full, because that pound of vegetables fills up my stomach, engages the stretch receptors, and my brain says, we're too full. But most of the time, it's my lunch is my first meal of the day, and that is my big beautiful salad that I chop, that is full of healthy vegetables. It's so nutrient dense. I add some starch to it because I don't need to sequence anymore. You know, once you've lost your weight and you're doing well, you don't have to sequence. But so I'll have all my starch in there with my salad, and that's my first meal of the day. And then I'm full, and I can usually make it until 6:30 without having to eat again, because my lunch is so filling. And that's another thing. When you're eating nutrient dense food, your cravings go way, way down. And I love, Chef AJ always says, if you're not hungry enough for vegetables, you're really not hungry. So if you think you're hungry, try eating vegetables first. And if you go, oh, I really don't, you know, I don't want any broccoli or kale or carrots or whatever, you're probably really not hungry. It's probably a craving that you're having, not true hunger. And so remember that too. And a lot of times, just a cup of hot tea will take away that feeling that you want a craving. And maybe it's too hot right now. You could have, you know, an iced herbal tea instead, or have a big glass of infused water. So I like to make a glass of infused water. I'll just put whatever kind of fresh fruit I have in it. And this is filtered water from my filtered water from the fridge. And I have a little bit of lime juice, fresh lime juice in here, and a little bit of fresh mint. And if you kind of work the mint a little bit with your fingers to help it release the oils before you put it in your water, and that is super flavorful. It has no calories, and it really satisfies me and makes me feel like I have something. And when the weather is cold, I love a cup of hot tea. There's something about having something nice and warm in my tummy that, you know, is very satisfying and comforting. So let's see. I'm going to see what else. Okay, so somebody asked about the non-starch days for a plateau. So my friend Shada, who lost, I think, 120 pounds on the Ultimate Weight Loss Program, she does a fruit and vegetable day like every Wednesday. And she's been doing that for like 7 or 8 years. And it just kind of is a reset for her palate. It also has taught her that that if she catches herself on vacation or out for a day and all she can get are some fruits and vegetables and no starch, that she isn't going to starve and that she can make it. So I've done just a few of the fruit and vegetable days, and I just really don't enjoy them. I think for me, they make me feel like I'm having deprivation, and they make me feel like it's a fad diet. So it's a total psychological thing for me, because you know, I'm completely full on those days, just eating fruits and vegetables and not having the starch. But for me, psychologically, I love knowing that I can have the starch. And I think that's why it was so hard for me when I did the juice fast, because I just really missed having the starch, and I kind of felt like it was punishment. But some people like doing the fruit and vegetable days, and it can be like if you've gone off, you know, and eaten some high calorie density foods and that's triggering some cravings for you, it can be a way to reset your palate, because the cleaner you eat, the better your food will taste. And so you can certainly try that if you want. I'm not into doing like the Mary's Mini, where all of your choices are limited, or the fruit and vegetable days. I just don't like that. But we're all individual and everybody's different. And so for Shada, it works perfect. She looks forward to her fruit and vegetable days. It makes her feel energized, and maybe it would help you if you have reached a plateau or an equilibrium. Now, somebody else asked about losing inches, not pounds. I don't have an answer for you why that happens. I know that Shada, I was talking to her this morning, and she had a plateau for 7 months, where for 7 months the weight on the scale did not change, but her clothing size did change. So she was experiencing changes in her body, even though it wasn't showing up on the scale. Some people say, well, if you're working out and exercising and you're building muscle during the weight loss phase, that, you know, maybe you're creating more muscle mass. And so, you know, that is creating an equilibrium as far as what the scale says. And we know that a pound of muscle will burn more calories at rest than a pound of fat. And also a pound of muscle takes up less room on your body than a pound of fat. You know, the fat is more soft and jiggly, and a pound of muscle is more firm and lean. And so, I mean, if you just think of, oh, I don't want to do an animal product comparison. So anyway, skip that. But, and so maybe that could be what's happening. I'm not a doctor, and so I don't have the medical or the scientific reason behind why that can happen. But Tom's going like this: muscle.
Muscle burns more calories than fat.
And muscle does burn more calories than fat.
And you can be growing muscles well.
And so that's another thing that you can do if you find yourself at an equilibrium or a plateau, is that you might want to change the type of exercise that you're doing, and you may want to start doing some resistance training. And it doesn't have to be anything elaborate. You don't have to join a gym. There's exercise bands that you can buy if you don't have hand weights. They're relatively inexpensive. They come in varying degrees of strength, and you can buy 2 or 3 of them. You can have them around your house. They're easy to take with you if you travel, because they don't take up space or add a lot of weight to your suitcase. And there's a bazillion YouTube videos on how to use them, and you can do all kinds of exercises with them, just using your own body, and you can increase your muscle mass. And, you know, as women, aging women, we need to do that to prevent osteoporosis and bone loss. And so also doing that type of exercise helps us with our balance. And, you know, as people age, they have a high risk of falling and breaking a bone, a hip usually, and that can be detrimental to your health. So maybe adding some strength training would be good, because the muscle mass at rest will burn more calories than the fat. So I'm going to check my notes and make sure I've covered everything that I wanted to talk to you about. Okay, I think I did. So now I'm ready for more people's questions, Tom.
Okay.
And I answered the two about the non-starch day and losing inches, not pounds. And then I have questions that were submitted. And I wanted you to talk about metabolic rate.
Okay.
A little bit, and I'll take a little breather for a minute.
All right.
And I'll drink some water because my throat's getting like, ah.
You've got water right there.
I do.
Okay. So I made some notes from the chat feed on some questions that have been rolling through. So we'll be catching some of those here shortly. So I've been kind of immersed in the chat feed.
Okay, so we're going to talk about the metabolic rate.
Yeah. BMR, basal metabolic rate, which is a fancy way of saying RMR, resting metabolic rate, is the amount of calories that your body needs just to sit here and be alive, to beat your heart, to breathe through your lungs, to circulate your blood, to blink your eyes. Those all things take up a little bit of energy provided by the sugars in your blood system, the starches, and that's called the basal metabolic rate. There is a link in the show notes to the least noisy one so far as pop-ups is concerned. I put on there My Fitness Pal. Was that
My Fitness Pal.
Yeah, that's what it was. Anyway, I chose that one just because it was kind of simple and straightforward, didn't have a bunch of advertisements attached to it. And just as an experiment, I went back to my...
So did you explain that metabolic
it's the amount
rate
of calories that you burn just to exist.
Yeah, so even if you just stayed in bed all day, this is...
How many calories you're burning.
Yeah.
We talk about this just as a point of reference. It's not a benchmark that we use in our day-to-day life. No. We don't get on the scale every day. We don't count any calories. We eat, the non-starchy vegetables and the starches and all those things Chef AJ calls left of the red line. But to compare kind of before and after, because Tammy talked about when you lose weight, then you have to adjust your consumption. You have to change your diet as you lose weight because of the plateau situation.
Yeah, because when you weigh less, you need fewer calories. And people always ask me, well, to stop losing weight, did you start adding in more food? No, because I weigh 49 pounds less than I used to. And so I don't need as much food as I did when I was
You have an easier
heavier.
time existing. So my high weight, 194 pounds, I was 59 years old, and my resting metabolic rate was a daily calorie burn of 1,723 calories. And that was when I was 59. Now fast forward to today, I'm 66 years old. I weigh around 165 pounds. That goes, it varies up and down from there for a couple of pounds. As of this morning, it was 166. And I'm at age 66. And so now my resting metabolic rate for a day's worth of calorie burn is 1,561. So that's a pretty significant drop from 1,723 down to 1,561. So I don't get to eat as much food as I used to and sit still and not gain weight. Tammy's high weight of 174 pounds when she was 53, her resting metabolic rate was 1,379 calories. And there's more contrast with hers. She lost more weight. At 128 pounds at age 60, her resting metabolic rate is only 1,136 pounds. So between the calories, yeah. So that is, 400-ish calorie difference between the two of us, a 6-foot tall male versus a 5'4" female at our respective weights.
And we know from the studies that they did on the Biggest Losers, as well as the research that Dr. Roseanne Oliveira has done, that a woman like me who has had a history of yo-yo dieting, I have to eat 25% fewer calories to maintain my weight than someone my same age, height, and weight who was never a yo-yo dieter.
Because you're taught your metabolism to conserve energy.
That's
right.
right.
So it does just that.
That's right. And so I have to eat 25% less than that.
Yeah.
because that's for someone who hasn't been a yo-yo dieter.
Okay, and these are averages too.
And these are averages,
so,
right.
Anyway, the disparity of this is, comes to this. People ask us, what do you eat in a day? Are you counting calories? No. Are you weighing? No. Are you measuring? No. We eat, the 600 calories or less per pound. The beans, legumes, non-starchy vegetables, starchy vegetables, all of that stuff to satiation, to satiation at each meal. We eat until we're comfortably full.
And that's key right there.
We eat until we're comfortably full. I've actually had to pull down the amount of vegetables in my steam. I've been pulling back on my steamed vegetables for my lunch, steamed vegetables, because I've been getting like too full. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we don't eat the same amounts of stuff. What's good for me is not good for her. What's good for us may not be good for you, because everybody's burn rate is unique to their height, weight, and age and activity level.
Yeah, and then this doesn't take in activity level. And so we're very active. And so this is just how many calories we would need if we stayed in bed all day, which obviously we don't. And we get at least 10,000 steps in every day, usually more than that. And so this isn't the base amount of calories that we need. I want to point that out. Because we're highly active throughout the day, and so we get more calories than that.
Yeah, I get away with, what is that, about a quarter of a cup of tofu in my steamed vegetables, and it doesn't cause a problem. Now, if Tammy was doing that,
I'd gain weight.
She would gain weight.
Yeah.
So, anyway, so that it's just kind of a nice to know perspective, but it's not a tool we use on a daily basis. It's like understand it, learn about it, and then just forget about it and eat the right stuff.
Well, we didn't even know what our numbers were until today when you went on there and did
I had an idea that mine was around 15 or so.
Yeah, well, I thought mine was around 1,200 is what I figured. And and we don't track. We have never put what we're eating in a day into like chronometer? Chronometer? I don't know.
Chronometer.
I don't know. What?
Pedometer.
No, one of the tracking. We haven't been doing that. Like we did years ago when we were like doing Weight Watchers. Yeah. We would use MyFitnessPal back then. But we don't have to do that because we adhere to the calorie density chart on the back of AJ's book. And we stick to the 600 calories or under calorie density chart foods. And so because we're doing that, we can eat whatever we want until we're comfortably full. But that is the ticket, is to pay attention to your hunger drive. Only eat when you're hungry and only eat until you are comfortably full. And so if you're stuffing yourself at every meal, you can overconsume and either gain weight or hit a plateau. And so you really have to tune into your hunger drive. And I know someone had asked us, well, I've dieted so much that I don't know when I'm hungry anymore. And I would book an appointment with Dr. Doug Lisle or Jen Hawk and have a conversation about that. And I'm sure that they could help you figure out how to know when you're actually truly hungry and when you're actually truly full.
Catherine Santos was asking earlier in the chat, have you ever heard of a herb that impacts metabolic rate?
I have not.
I think the biggest thing if you want to impact and change your metabolic rate is to move. Moving is what changes your metabolic rate. You can never outrun your fork, but you can have more forks of the right kind of food if you're moving a little bit.
Yeah. So Dr. Greger has lots of hints and tips in here on different foods that you can eat and the things that they will do, and all based on scientific studies. So go to his website or order the book, and he has lots of hints and tips, things that will give you an advantage for losing weight in here. And he also talks about calorie density and how eating the low calorie density foods are just a winning ticket to losing weight. And at True North Health Center, when you go into the cafeteria there, because we were there in December, so it starts out with the, it's set up buffet style, and it starts out with the non-starchy, uncooked, raw vegetables and fruit, and then it moves to the cooked vegetables, and then it moves to the starches, the potatoes, the squash.
Do you ever
the
not
soups.
include starch in a meal? Susan Johnson's asking. There's starch in there's some starch in every meal.
Yeah, I mean, if I
Vegetables for breakfast.
vegetables for breakfast, if I have those, usually I don't add any starch to those because those will fill me up. But if I got hungry mid-morning, then I would add some starch, because starch is what you need to feel full. It's where you get your glucose that you need for energy. So you don't want to eliminate your starch, but you also don't want to overeat on it as well. That's why we start with the lowest calorie density foods first, the non-starchy vegetables first, because if we start eating, like I talked about this last week, if we start eating potatoes, rice, squash, lentils, if we start eating that stuff first, we're not going to go back to the raw vegetable salad because our brain is going to be hijacked then.
Yeah, I can't wrap my head around eating my big bowl of steamed vegetables for my evening meal because that's a lot of bulk, that bowl.
You don't want to go to bed with that.
I don't want to eat that at nighttime. And it's a hot soup too. I'm happier with my chopped salad at nighttime, and that's kind of a sequencing thing because I want all of that volume earlier in the day.
So my salad at lunch, it would not sustain me for 6 hours if I didn't include the starch in it, because the starch is what's going to help me feel full.
A question came through just now on this metabolic rate thing. Pam, there's a link in the show notes of this video to the MyFitnessPal metabolic rate calculator. Fill in your weight, your age, and your height, and it gives you an average number for those statistics.
Yeah.
So that's what we've been talking about.
And we've gotten some questions this past week about how many calories do you eat a day. I have no idea because I have never sat down to figure that out. So I don't know. After years of yo-yo dieting, almost 4 decades of yo-yo dieting, I am so happy that I don't have to count points, calories, carbohydrates, food, I don't know.
Now I don't have to go looking for 2-point Kashi bars, and then they changed them to 3-point Kashi
Yeah,
bars,
I
and I
mean,
was so upset when Weight Watchers changed the points on the Kashi bars because that was my thing.
Yeah, and so I'm so happy that I don't have to do that.
No points.
I don't want to start making that an issue for myself. So I may one day plug everything in just so I can tell somebody when they ask. But it varies a little bit from day to day. Some days I'm hungrier than other days, and it depends on our activity level, like, if we go hiking or what have you. Okay, next question.
Okay, Kim Carter had asked where she can get her hands on Chef AJ's calorie density chart. Well, first of all, it's on the back of her book.
It's on the back of her book.
And that's probably the best place to get it because then you get everything that's inside the book as well.
You get the whole, like everything that I have talked about between last week and this week is all in here, plus 117 recipes that use all of the lower calorie density foods that are the nutrient-rich foods. And so there's 117 recipes in here that are at 600 calories or less per pound calorie density.
Yeah. Now,
so this is my Bible.
So this refrigerator magnet one we bought at one of Chef AJ's conferences, and Chef AJ, if you're still here, is this still for purchase on your site? Because I don't know that for sure. I haven't looked recently.
She used to sell them on her website.
But I went looking last month and I didn't see them, so I'm not sure.
See it? Okay, so you can
Google that too.
You can also Google calorie density chart, and you might find hers online, and you'll certainly find.
People have taken pictures of that and posted on Pinterest. You can't print them or anything, but anyway.
You can see them. But you just Google calorie density
Okay,
chart. And
here's
just
Chef
know-
AJ's answer. If they join the group, they get one, but we don't sell them solo. And I did not find them on this. That's why I didn't want to say.
Okay.
So
And you can join if you want to know more and have access to a private Facebook group and an incredible library of videos and get menus and just monthly talks with like Dr. Lisle. Join Chef AJ's new program that's called Feel Fabulous.
The link is
40.
already near the top of the show notes of this video. I've already got the link installed there, so it's easy to find.
Because then you have a resource, a whole library resource where you can put in, if you want to know about Plateaus, if you want to know about why no salt, you can search things on there, and it's an amazing website, and her whole program is on there, and you have tons of videos to watch, plus you get access to a private Facebook group, and so you have a built-in community, because one of the things that's important is to have support. You have to have a clean environment, and you have to have knowledge. You have to educate yourself about the right way to lose weight and keep it off, because there's a million ways to lose weight, but if you don't learn how to keep it off, there's absolutely no point in losing it to begin with. And so I eat the same way now that I ate to lose the weight. I get that question a lot.
Okay, I have a couple more here.
Okay.
I just saw one pop up I can answer very shortly. Foolie Julie, what brand of pita bread do you like when we get pita bread? The short answer is we don't get pita bread. That's processed bread, and that's not part of our diet. So we eat corn tortillas is our kind of thing that we put stuff on. So
and I make my quinoa banana oat muffins.
Yeah, but
otherwise we don't eat any flour, and we don't eat any bread.
That's part
products.
of Chef AJ's SOFA, salt, oil, sugar, flour, alcohol-free diet.
That's right.
Okay.
Ooh, good job, honey.
Angie Webb had asked earlier, how long did it take you to get the sad food out of your system, is how she worded it. Well, you can get it out of your system the day that you stop eating it. I think this is more of getting it out of your head. It took me a half a year to where I kind of danced back and forth, and then I did all the junk vegan stuff for a while. Mm-hmm. But to no red meat, and no chicken, to no red meat, no chicken, and no fish, and then no sausages. That kind of stepping back from plant foods, I did gradually. Tammy went in all at once. So it took me half a year. She did it in one day.
Well, except that I had some fish like 2 or 3 times, I think. In that maybe twice in that 6 months, because we went to San Francisco and then we went out one other time.
Yeah.
But I jumped in full force, and I was actually doing Dr. Furman's plan originally until I became hypothyroid and couldn't lose the weight, and then I found Chef AJ, and that wished I'd found her first, because it totally turned my life around and ended yo-yo dieting. So if you're still on here, AJ, thank you.
Okay. Just when you were talking, I was not listening to you. I was listening to the chat feed over here. But Mary Jo she sent you a poop emoji.
Oh, because I said that.
And I thought that was very nice of her to send you your own very special poop emoji.
That's because,
so just so you know that she's thinking about you.
That's because I heard Doug Lisle say when the stars align and you poop at just the right time before you get on the scale,
to weigh.
Then that's the time to weigh.
Okay. Nancy Hanson, I think we kind of just answered your question. Did we change together to plant-based or separately? Tammy led the charge on that, and I followed incrementally over the course
And we have a video all about our journey. So it's a YouTube video, so look for that.
Yeah, if you search plant-based journey on our YouTube channel in the search box, go to Nutmeg Notebook channel and then put in journey or plant-based journey, that video will come up. Marty Cash is my scroll here, I think, asking, what about drinking green tea? I think you touched on they were talking that Dr. Greger has that in his book. Tammy doesn't drink any caffeinated teas. I drink a green tea in the morning.
He does.
But I don't drink caffeine stuff in the afternoon and evening, because then that affects your sleep cycle. And we've had a lot of instruction about sleep cycles in recent years and how critical they are to overall health.
Yeah, and and it's an individual thing too, because we're all an experiment of one. So caffeine for me really gives me the jitters and keeps me up at night. And so I'm just better to not have any caffeine. And caffeine does have, Tom was referring to, a half-life, and it can disrupt your sleep. And, there's all kinds of factors that enter into play about why we can or cannot lose weight. And so for some people, caffeine can be a problem.
Okay, we answered PM on the metabolic rate.
But
does the BMR
two.
include, Melanie's asking, does BMR include exercise calories? No, it does not.
No.
That's your resting metabolic rate. So
that is if you just laid in bed all day, that's the amount of calories that your body would need to keep you alive.
say here's a for instance. If we're just going on our 4 mile walk, I'll have my green tea and then we take off. But I don't feel like I need to have my oat breakfast because I don't need that energy burn. But if I'm going to go on a 10-mile bike ride or a 12-mile bike ride,
then
I do eat my breakfast because I don't want to, in
up.
bicycling, what's called bonk. I might need to adjust the camera. I don't want to bonk out because of lack of blood sugar. So I'll eat my oats before I go on the bike ride, but I don't need to when I'm going on a walk just because of the amount of calorie burn.
Am I cutting my head off?
I'm going to fix that in just a moment.
Okay. It's the
Thomas-
sciatic nerve is
Thomas
acting up.
from California Balsams was hanging out here. So
Hey, Thomas. So that's
no,
another thing.
I'm going to stand out. Here's my shirt. This is the Father's Day shirt.
Yep.
I can't read it upside down.
Dad, abuelo,
I don't know the order.
the man, the myth, the legend.
Yeah.
So our grandkids actually call him Lito, which is kind of short for abuelito.
Okay, now we've got you back
Now
in
I'm
the
not
picture.
cut off. Okay, good.
All right.
So did we answer?
We talked about starch.
Did we answer all the questions about plateaus?
I think so.
Okay. Well, then I have
So
questions.
what I'm right? Yeah, go into the story. I'm just
You
scrolling for
scroll
questions.
through and see. So I have questions that were submitted through emails or questions that were left on Facebook for me. And I may have missed some. It's really hard to find the questions that are left on YouTube and Instagram and Facebook and emails. They show up in so many places, and sometimes I'll see the notification on my phone, but then I don't remember which social media place it was, and I lose it. So Tammy Williams asked about cooking, cleaning, and storing mushrooms, and some of these questions were left over from last week. So you can use a soft pastry brush on them if they have a little bit of the potting soil. Is that what it would be? That is on them?
Yeah, they're growing in some kind of a peat moss
Moss
medium
stuff.
or something. Yeah.
So if they appear to be kind of dirty, then you can just use a pastry brush, or you can use a paper towel, or you don't want to get them, they're very porous, so you don't want to get them really wet before you're
They get
going
really
to...
slippery when they get really wet.
Yeah,
They're hard to hang on to.
And they'll absorb the liquid. And so if you feel like they need washed, wait until to wash them just with some running cold water in the sink to wash them before you're going to slice them up and cook them.
I just put them in a colander and swish them under the cold water, and then I will throw them out. And maybe I'll put a paper towel on the cutting board because they do get slippery.
They do, and so you might want to pat them dry with a kitchen towel or some paper towels. And for storage, what I've read online is that you can just put them in a brown paper bag and then close the top and put them in the refrigerator. And the brown paper bag is not airtight, and so it will allow a little bit of air circulation so that they won't get soggy. You should not put them in a container with an airtight lid on it because
they'll get slimy quickly.
And they only last, depending on how fresh they are when you buy them, they really only last like 4 to 7 days in the refrigerator. So most of the time, we're able to eat them all up before they go bad. And if we notice that, they're not going to last very much longer, then I'll go ahead and slice them up, and I will just water saute them with a little bit of onion in the skillet, and then we'll have them already sauteed, and we can add them to anything that we want to add them to. So Julie asked, and if anybody has any mushroom tips that you want to add in the comments, feel free to do that. So Julie asked, what size scoop do I use for the air fried mashed potato balls? We have a YouTube video on those, and so you just make the garlic mashed potatoes in the pressure cooker, and then if you have some left over, then I just use a scoop and I make little potato balls and air fry them, and then you can make some of my nacho cheese sauce or Donna's cheese sauce. Both recipes are on the blog, and drizzle it over them or heat it up and dip them in that, and they are so good, you guys. So this is I think this is the medium-sized scoop, and it's just under 2 tablespoons, so it's probably the 1.7 tablespoon size. It has no markings on it to tell me what size it is, and it was one that I bought from Pampered
When
Chef.
you go to that place on the Amazon page, it shows you all the different sizes. There's just one link there, but when you get to it, so you have to think about how many ounces you want the scoop to be, and once we get them, they're not numbered, but
they're not numbered. But this should be the 1.7 tablespoons. It's an odd amount.
I would believe that. That looks like
it's not.
And this
quite,
is a number 40.
It's not quite 2 tablespoons.
Yeah, this is a number 40. So.
And then she also wanted to know. Don't make noise. Bad boy. She also wanted to know how to best store potatoes to keep them longest, and you're the expert on that.
Oh, I made a temperature note here somewhere. Potatoes are best stored between 42 and 50 degrees. So if you have a perfect spot in your house that happens to be between 42 and 50 degrees, I do not know where that might be. That's the place to put them. We used to keep them, actually we keep the ones we're going to use in the next few days, we keep in the pantry here in this little stacking tower, just so that things can breathe and not get slimy. But in the course of a week or so, anything that's in there will start getting the little sprouts coming out, because it's closer to 70 degrees in here, not the best potato storage temperature. We're fortunate that we have the old refrigerator. We have a refrigerator in the garage that's not old. It's new, that we store all of our massive vegetables that we buy when we come home from our shopping. But the old refrigerator is actually out in the shop, and we call that the root cellar. And I have it turned on to just like the very first, like it just came on notch. And that temperature happens to be 47 degrees. So this refrigerator is just like a barely on. And we throw all of our bags of the Japanese sweet potatoes, the Hanny Yams, the garnet potatoes, the Yukon Gold potatoes, any russets we buy. They all go in there, and they last. I get the little, what do you call those little cherry potatoes for my steamed vegetables?
They're little like new potatoes, little tiny
potatoes. Like marble-sized new potatoes. And I buy those in a big bag and throw them in there, and that lasts for weeks. Potatoes in their natural temperature, storage temperature, can go up to like 135 days of storage in there. They stayed in the ground. They evolved to stay in the ground through winter and then sprout again in the spring. So if they're in the right temperature environment, they will last a long time. I doubt that many people have their new refrigerator and their old refrigerator for the vegetables, and then the old refrigerator for the potatoes. This is ridiculous. But
hey, if you have like a wine refrigerator or a wine cooler,
if you have a wine cooler
like
and
that,
you've gone whole food plant-based SOS free, you're not using that wine cooler anymore. That's a great, perfect place to put potatoes. Just crank that down to 50 degrees.
Or you could buy one of those little dorm-sized refrigerators.
Well, they smell wine cooler. They sell small wine coolers too.
Or a little dorm-sized refrigerator too for $100. And you could have that be your potato storage.
If they stay warm enough. I don't know that those would stay warm enough.
Well, you have to check the temperature. But once he thought of this, oh my gosh, this has been like so perfect. I just hit my mic. I probably made it go crunk. This has been so perfect through this pandemic because we're able to store the potatoes and have them not develop eyes. And it's been great because we don't want to go to the store all the time. And so we're able to buy a large quantity at one time. And, you know, before I would buy just enough for the week. Well, now when we see like they have the Japanese sweet potatoes, then I'll go ahead and buy like 2 weeks worth.
Because the size and the size of those is so variable. So when you get a bunch of good ones, we buy them up.
Yeah.
So at the very least, keep your potatoes in a dark place to keep the light off of it, because that starts their metabolism. It starts them turning green, and then they get bitter and they start growing eyes. So, next question.
Okay.
Here, Foolie Julie, store potatoes in plastic bags? No. Store them in an open container or a paper bag with the lid open. Store them loose, and so air can get around them. Otherwise, that moisture will cause them to go rotten right away. So when we get home, unfortunately, some of the Whole Foods insists on putting our Yukon Golds in a plastic bag, but we're going to look at buying them without a bag. I take them out of the bag immediately and dump them into a basket, a wooden basket that we keep in the refrigerator.
Oh, Diane says those little potatoes can be called creamer potatoes. Yeah, that's right.
Creamer potatoes?
Creamer
potatoes.
Creamer. My mom used to make a white sauce and put the new potatoes that they would grow in the garden in the white sauce. So someone asked me, and I had it on my list last week, but I didn't, a question, but I didn't get to it. And she wanted to know what is a great cookbook to buy that would be good for, she's just transitioning her family to whole food plant-based, and she wanted a cookbook that would be good for kids as well as herself. So Chef AJ's first book, Unprocessed, has more high calorie density recipes included in this that really do appeal to children. So there's a lot of like smoothie recipes. Smoothies are great for kids because you can pack in a lot of calories and the higher fat foods that they need, like flax and chia and avocado and nut butters in them. And then there's some wonderful desserts. And then there's still a lot of regular basic recipes in here that you would also be able to eat. And, you know, a lot of times what you can do is, like, Tom can eat tofu and avocado and the higher calorie density foods than I can. So I'll just make my stuff and then he can embellish it if he needs to. So this is a really good one. Sharon McRae, who's a friend of ours from back east, when she first started transitioning her kids, she bought this book and she started making stuff out of this book for them, and it really appealed to them, and the food also really appealed to their friends. So this is a good one to get. But if you're trying to lose weight, you know, you'll want to not eat those higher calorie density foods. Then there is this one. It's called Plant Powered Families, and this is by Drina Burton. And my daughter cooks out of this a lot for her family. So it's really geared towards kids, that all the flavorings and seasonings are more mild and really geared for smaller children, but you know, teenagers too. And she goes in depth a lot in here about, you know, what to think about when you're going to be feeding your kids. So, and her recipes are amazing. I've been a recipe tester for like three different cookbooks of hers, and her recipes are foolproof. Like, I don't know why she even has recipe testers, because she doesn't really need them. And then this is also a really good one, especially if you have picky eaters, or just everybody in the family likes something different. So this is called the Foodie Bar Way. And by the way, these are all on our Amazon page, and Tom has a link to our Amazon page. You just scroll down to the bottom and you'll find them. And this is called the Foodie Bar Way, and this is by Timmerie Hagenberger, and she's actually a local professor, college professor here. She Oh, AJ, you should interview her if you're still on. She teaches a plant-based nutrition class at a local college, and then she created this book, and it's great for feeding families. And she has, here's the basic recipe, here's how to step it up a notch, and lots of fantastic recipes in this. She uses a very small amount of nuts, like, maybe in one recipe there'll be a tablespoon in a salad dressing for the whole recipe. So, and her recipes are amazing. And she also has, if you look her up, the nutrition professor, she has a website, and there's a lot of recipes on her website, and she has videos, and she is a real dynamo. We absolutely love her.
Oh, Chef AJ says she's already scheduled.
Yay! Oh, good.
Okay.
I'm so glad.
All right.
She's awesome.
Okay, we have a question from, I had actually a note for Becca L's question on my card, but that I didn't write down the question. So, I just got a nice reminder from Jesse to go back and pick that up. And so, and I'm scrolling up. Becca says, Tammy, you said on AJ's, on your interview on AJ's Summit,
Yeah.
you had gained weight on potatoes, and asked her what was going on.
Oh, yeah, because I wasn't...
That had to do with air frying.
Yes, because I wasn't sequencing. We had just gotten the Breville Smart Oven Air, and I was making French fries every day because they were so amazing. But the thing was, I was filling the tray, and it's like a size like 9 by 13
with like
tray.
6 potatoes worth
Yeah, and I was just filling the tray with French fries. And then we were eating them, and we weren't sequencing. We were sitting down, and we were like eating those French fries first. And so we would eat the entire tray of them between the two of us. And I gained 5 pounds in a few weeks doing that. And then I was talking to Chef AJ. I was like, oh my gosh, my pants are tight, and I gained 5 pounds.
So to clarify the confusion, because she said, I'm confused, I thought eating this way helps you with weight loss so you can eat as much as you want.
Well, I was air frying the
Which
potatoes.
Increases the calorie density of the potato beyond its normal, like way more than what my steamed potatoes are.
And I wasn't sequencing because we were filling up. If you watched my video last week about calorie density, you'll see like we were filling up on potatoes first, on starch, which is a higher calorie density, and we were eating way more potato than we would have if we had eaten our vegetables and our salad first and then went to the potatoes.
So what's kind of key though in this example is that those potatoes had their calorie density increase dramatically because they were being air fried, which was taking water out of them and increasing the number of calories per pound consumed. If you were just eating a boiled potato or a steamed potato, you probably wouldn't sit down and eat a half a dozen boiled potatoes. That wouldn't be that appetizing necessarily.
Oh, plus we were dipping them in, I was making
a homemade ketchup.
A homemade ketchup. Which was fine. It was SOS free, but I mean, it was just highly palatable food. And so, so then after talking to AJ, she was like, well, are you sequencing? And, just make the amount of potatoes that you would normally eat. So if you would normally eat just one potato, make French fries out of one potato. And so, so the next day or whenever, the next time I made them, I did that. We ate our salads first, and then we ate our raw chopped salads first, and then we ate the French fries. And I only made the amount that we would normally have eaten as just a potato, and we couldn't even finish them.
So we were bending and breaking the rules, and so that's why that didn't work in that moment of time. Happy Balsamic is asking, what about onion storage? Kind of the same thing as potatoes. Dark place, open air. Those usually come in a mesh, kind of a net thing. I do leave them there because the onion skins fly over there. We do have them in a bin that has holes on the side for airflow, because that's another thing. If you keep it tight in a bag, it's going to go rotten right away. So, but I don't keep those out. I don't.
And you need to keep the onions separate from the potatoes. They say you should not store onions and potatoes together.
Because the vapors will make them do strange things.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so I've got a couple more questions here to answer.
Okay.
Can I? Okay, so we've gotten a lot of questions the last week about, well, first I'm going to do this. Someone wanted to know, do flax seeds need to be ground? Yes, they do, because your body is not able to break them down. And so I buy the pre-ground flax meal, the golden flax meal at Costco, and we keep it in our freezer. And then we just take out and we fill a little mason jar of it to keep in the refrigerator to use. Probably if you are worried about losing any nutrients at all, the best would be to buy them whole and grind them yourselves. And you can buy a coffee mill to grind them in, or they do make some little grinders for spices, and you could do that. So, yes, they do have to be ground. And then someone wanted to know what the 2 subscriber-only recipes are, so they can look for them in their email. And that when you subscribe to the blog, Nutmeg Notebook, you get an email is sent to you right as soon as you're done subscribing, and it's free to subscribe. You fill out the subscription, you put in your email, and then you'll get an email from us right away. It's an automatic reply that the computer does, and oftentimes it goes to your junk email or your spam email, so look in there, and you'll get a link to print a curry ginger butternut squash soup and a strawberry balsamic dressing recipe that are only for subscribers, and you won't find them anyplace else. And so, and it's in a welcome, it comes as a welcome letter. Thank you for joining. It's a welcome
letter with a link to download the recipes.
Right, with a link to the recipes. So it's not going to say curry ginger butternut squash soup or strawberry balsamic dressing in the body of the email, but that you'll get a link to it. But it's a welcoming email that you'll get. And then there's a question about should I remove the spice jar plastic shaker caps that are on top of my spices? Well, I mean, you can if you want to. But then if you want to go and shake a little bit over some food, then you won't have the ability to do that. You can put it in like a little spoon and then just tap it. But local spicery tells us that moisture is what really ruins spices, dried spices. And so you should never take the shaker and put the shaker
over
of spices over a hot dish or over a steaming pan, because all that moisture gets in there and then it ruins the spices. So whether you take those off or not would be just a personal choice if you want to. And then there's a question about, we've gotten this from a couple different people, about what are the best recommendations for cooking pans.
Can we cover some weight stuff first?
Okay, sure. We'll save that for last. That'll be the last thing we talk about.
Karen Hicks is asking, and Nancy Henson as well, how long did it take you to lose your weight?
I don't remember. I know people ask me that all the time. And you know what? I wasn't good about writing it down and tracking it, because I had been obsessive about my weight prior to that. Like when I was doing Weight Watchers, I kept a chart every week, and I was obsessive about it. And so, I would even write down what I wore to weigh in each week, so that I could wear about the same weight of clothes the next week, so that I would know for sure exactly how much I lost. And so I was really obsessive about it. And so, I had already been doing whole food plant-based for about 2 years by the time I found Chef AJ's program. And so, I had started to get away from that. And so I did not write down what my weight was or anything. So I can't tell you how long it took, but my weight loss was slow because I'm hypothyroid and I've been a yo-yo dieter. And so, my metabolism is probably good and shot. And so I don't know. I just know it was slow because a lot of people, there were about 100 of us, I think, that joined at the same time, and people were reporting lots of weight loss every week. And, I know my weight loss was slower than most people's, but I really didn't care because I had a calm and stable brain chemistry and my cravings went away. Once I got to have starch, it was amazing the change that it had on just my brain and the way I felt and the way I thought. And so so the weight loss was slow, but
Well, you've had it off for about
5
years. The picture we took of you when we went up that one hill where you were,
oh yeah,
that was 2013-ish. That was 2013. So, and so from that time frame to 5 years ago would have been to 2015. So about a year and a half to maybe 2 years.
No, it didn't take me that long to lose the weight.
Okay.
No. I'm thinking maybe
Well, that was the summer of 2013. So we'd had that car that we drove up. We
maybe maybe it took me 6 or 7 months.
Okay.
I don't know.
All right.
I don't know. Doesn't matter. It came off. I mean, the thing about a lot of people ask, you know, how long did it take you, that kind of thing. And you know what my journey is my journey, and what your journey is going to be your journey. And even if we ate exactly the same, it could be completely different for you. Like you might lose your weight really fast, or you might even lose slower than me, because there's so many things that are variables. It's not just the food, but it's, you know, sleep patterns and habits and, you know, all kinds of things.
Okay.
Okay.
What was the last question about the pan? What's it? Amber?
Yeah.
What was the question?
Well, so Amber wanted to know if I had a recommendation for a pan that she could cook Indian tortillas, dosa, in that won't stick, but it would still make a good crust. And then somebody else wanted to know a cook pan recommendation. Should they buy just the essentials, cheap or expensive? And if it's expensive, do we have a recommendation? Well, I do suggest that you go to Dr. Greger's website, nutritionfacts.org, and he released a video just recently about nonstick pans, stainless steel, and cast iron. And so watch that. He pretty much says, you know, the safest one that we know of is going to be stainless steel. And when stainless steel pots and pans are brand new, they can have a little bit of release of some chemicals, and he tells you what they are.
But he says that's like only in the first half a dozen uses.
That's right, but that's just the first few uses, and then after that, it's, you know, really the safest pans that you can get. I have some stainless steel cookware. I, you know, use it for like making oatmeal and that kind of stuff, but I have not tried just water sauteing vegetables in it, because what I use to do that is the Scan Pan, and Tom and I are not anywhere near experts on the coatings of pans, and there's so much controversy and there's so much information out there about Teflon and nonstick, and it's a minefield. So I just would recommend that you start doing your own research and your own homework and decide, you know, what you feel comfortable using. So this is a ceramic pan. Tom knows more about the technical parts of it, so he can give you that. But the brand is Scan Pan, so it's SCANPAN, and this is a 5.5 quart pan, and I've had
and
this.
that's the key component of this. The size of this thing is the biggest reason you have it.
Well, that and the fact that it's it is non-stick. So I can saute onions and mushrooms in here and not add any water to them. And the trick on this pan is to start with a lower heat so that they gently start sauteing and releasing their moisture. And I can cook, I make oat pancakes for our granddaughter, our oldest granddaughter, when she comes over, and I'll cook them in here because they won't stick. I like to brown my veggie burgers. I've never had good luck putting them in the oven. They always dry out for me and end up crumbly. But I can preheat this pan. I'll get it hot and then put my veggie burgers in here. And as long as I don't disturb them for at least 4 minutes, they will get a nice brown crust on them, and then I can easily flip them over and they'll brown really nice and not be...
That's the trick with any nonstick thing or even a stainless steel pan, is to leave stuff sit there and brown enough so that it does its own release.
Now, if you watch Chef Bravo from True North Health Center, he's the executive chef for True North Health Center. He has a Facebook page and he has cooking videos, and he has a cooking school online that's very inexpensive. So look up Chef Bravo, and he shows you how he cooks in stainless steel cookware, and he cooks, without oil in them, and he shows you how he does it. And so, and he recently did a video, or maybe it was on Chef AJ's interview that she did with him. Recently I saw a video with him in it, and he talked about what brand of stainless steel cookware he has and what he was getting ready to purchase to have new. So you want to tell him what this is made out of?
The short answer of that, this is a ceramic-filled nonstick coating. It's got some depth to it, so it doesn't flake off, it doesn't come off, it doesn't erode right away. Scan Pan has a new one out now that they say you can even use metal utensils on. I still wouldn't. They're always working on these finishes. Someone here on the chat just mentioned they bought some kind of Scan Pan and stuff was sticking. They have several levels of technology of these coatings.
They're not all equal.
And they are not all equal. This one we bought because of the durability of it. And regardless of what pan you get, you want the depth, because we heat this with vegetables and steam them down. Our ancient salad master cookware, the biggest frying pan on it, it's a nice stainless steel pan, isn't big enough to cook the volume of food that Tammy's sauteing. So the width, the depth, and then this is a multiple layers. It's got stainless steel and then aluminum and then stainless steel again and then the coating. And the aluminum and or iron in a layered pan distributes that heat so it's even, so you're not having a hot spot just in the middle. And that's another critical thing to having a successful nonstick service, is not getting it too hot and not having a hot spot in the middle. That's why the cheap Teflon coated pans don't last, because they get too hot in the middle, the heat doesn't get spread out, and they go bad, and that's just not good at any level. So
yeah, and so this is a 5.5 quart, and this one was a special pan that was only being sold at the time at Sur La Table. So we have one very similar to it that's on our Amazon page. I don't know if it's available right now. I didn't have time to look that up before we went live today. But we've been very happy with this pan, and it does a great job. And I leave it out on top of my stove because I use it all the time.
Yeah. So I think the ceramic filling in whatever this material is what also caused us to lean towards it when we bought it as well. Mm-hmm. But they've invented a new one, something titanium, whatever, that they're doing.
And this wasn't cheap. This was like a $300
they're not inexpensive
at the time.
Yeah, Nancy Hansen's commenting that she did research on a griddle, came up with the ceramic Bella. It's free of all the bad stuff, and it's what Kim Campbell and Jill Dotton both use.
Okay, so what is the brand?
Bella, ceramic Bella.
Ceramic Bella, okay.
Yeah. So, anyway, okay.
So that would be something to look at if you're looking for a griddle.
All of our other pans, though, we use, whether it's the little saute or the little 1 quart for reheating something, it's all the stainless steel Salad Master stuff.
Okay.
So,
great.
Gina's asking about, or commenting on cast iron. Dr. Greger just spoke about cast iron as well.
Yeah, watch his video.
Yeah.
On Teflon, stainless steel, and cast iron.
Okay.
It's a short video and very informative.
Okay. can one use, okay, this is back on the potatoes. This is a question up earlier. Can one use an old small freezer? Would one need to turn it on the first mark of the temperature? I don't know that that would work with the freezer. You can buy, I mean, if you have the storage space and you want to stock up on things like potatoes, there are temperature regulators that are used to, you plug the freezer into the temperature regulator and it has a thermostat that goes in the freezer box, and you can set it for any temperature you want from 70 degrees down to freezing. So that would be a little bit of YouTube do-it-yourself research on that. You can buy them where you just plug it into, you plug your freezer into it and put the probe in the freezer, and then you can dial up whatever temperature you want. They're not, it's like the one I had out in the garage. So it's, I know, check those out on Google those, and you can probably find them on Amazon. They're used in fermenting foods. If you want to ferment foods, like it's 58 degrees or 62 degrees or whatever temperature, those are used for that, and so they're readily available.
Nice.
Okay, we are at 104 minutes. We need to call it a day. So I think we're caught up for now.
Okay, and somebody else says they use the Bella griddle and love the ceramic finish. It works great.
Okay, well, we'll have to check that out and see what that is.
Yeah, we'll have to look that up. That sounds great. Okay, well, thank you guys so much for joining us today. This was really a lot of fun. I hope that it was helpful information for you. If you liked it, give us a thumbs up and share the video. You can share this on Facebook, in your Facebook groups, or email it to your friends and help us reach more people. We really appreciate that. And it's been fun, and we appreciate the questions. So if you asked questions that we didn't get to today, I found all the questions that I could find today. So if I didn't answer yours, if you could email us, email either Tom at Nutmeg Notebook or Tammy at Nutmeg Notebook, and we will try to answer your questions next week. And I don't know what the topic will be next week. We haven't gotten that far ahead. We kind of do it. We kind of decide like on Saturday or Sunday, what should we talk about today?
Well, what do we say? Get healthy, stay healthy, one meal at a time. So we get YouTube, and we do YouTube one week at a time.
1 week at a time. It's true, we do.
Thank you for the happy Father's Day wishes, everyone.
Yeah, and thank you to our moderators for moderating for us today.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Tiffany. Thank you, Jesse.
We really appreciate you doing it. And we appreciate everybody tuning in and spending time with us. So we'll see you next week. Have a beautiful week, you guys, and happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. I'm Tammy.
And I'm Tom.
And we help you
get healthy and stay healthy, one meal at a time. Bye-bye.
Bye, you guys.